AOC getting a new fawning cover story from GQ, which is still around, which calls her the political voice of a generation and the right wing's night terror in the flesh. The radical congresswoman opening up on her own shot at the presidency, but she says the country is too sexist for it to happen. My experience here has given me a front row seat to how deeply and unconsciously, as well as consciously, so many people in this country hate women. And they hate women of color. People ask me questions about the future, and realistically, I can't even tell you if I'm going to be alive in September. I admit to sometimes believing that I live in a country that would never let that happen. But if she ever wants to be president, AOC is worried our checks and balances system, which is the bedrock of our Constitution, would block her radical ideas. God, don't you hate that Supreme Court and Congress? So this is. She seems sad, like she's going through something. Was this a cry for help?
I think she whines a lot, and it's when she says, "I don't even know if I'll be alive in September." Well, none of us know that. Like that. It's like that is life. I mean, this is like you go out there. I find her completely uninspiring.
Right.
I find it almost banal and boring. And I also feel like, you know who would never get a GQ cover from the Democrats?
That's right.
Abigail Spanberger. And she is the Democrat that actually is like a moderate person and somebody that like would get along very well with Harold. She'll never get that. And I actually think the Democrats, they get held back by people like AOC because she's pulling them so far to the left.
She says we don't like women in this country. I would disagree with that. I think Harold would agree that we do like women and we like women of color. Example, if Michelle Obama announced she's running for president, landslide. What is AOC talking about?
Well, first of all, she's Debbie Downer. I mean, she said when she talks to little girls about them becoming president, she says, I don't want to tell young people that it's not possible or what's not possible. Hey, aren't you a dreamer? Isn't that how you got into Congress? Then she says so many people hate women. No, they don't hate women. They hate stupid women. They hate women who make believe there's something when they're not something. And you think you're going to die in September? Well, I'll bet there's a whole generation ahead of you who are probably going before you. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and stop being such a downer. And then she says men suffer from patriarchy. You know what? Get out of the dumps. You're in Congress. Enjoy your life. Be happy.
Yeah.
So, Harold.
I don't know if I can follow that.
So you're right. She's supposed to be an inspiring leader to everybody, but especially to young women. And she just gave a speech and she's like, you can't become president and I'm going to die. I mean, what is that?
Right, so I think there's some ideas that the progressives have that are ones that resonate with some parts of the country, and there's some value and currency in a lot of it. But when you hear the person who literally and figuratively is the voice of that group sound like this, uninspiring, predictable in so many ways, and making it always about her and the plight that she has, that's not what politics is about at its best. We talked about her running for president on the show a few weeks back, and you talked about her needing to go through a political maturing process. And it sounds like she might be stalled right now, because if you're serious about wanting to be president, you don't claim the country will never elect you after they elected Donald Trump and Barack Obama, and now in Joe Biden in the last 12 years. You get out and you talk about the reasons why you want to be president. You get out and talk about how you're going to make life better, how your ideas will transform the country, and not reject me personally, because I don't agree with a lot of her. You can't reject me and other voters because we don't agree with you. You have to persuade us, not bash us in the process. Politics has become more of that, and unfortunately, she's starting to manifest a little of the worst aspects and elements of politics.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a woman running for president, you don't call everybody in the country sexist. You wait until you lose, and then you call them sexist like Hillary did, right?
Yes. It is September. Should we be checking? I mean, have we heard anything from her? Do we need to make a safety call or just something? Because I'm a little worried. I don't have her phone number, or I would call her. Just a point before I make my other point about... She went and did a, quote, men's magazine. Now, in the woke, non-binary world, that is a huge violation. There should no longer be men's magazines or women's magazines. Why are we having this bifurcation, this binary patriarchal setup? That's dictated by men who created that magazine and create women's magazines. That's got to go. But she represents the squad, right? And I think Harold has argued this, like every party has a contingent that is a mirror to another contingent, right? You could argue that the Squad is the mirror to extreme MAGA, and that parties have different slivers of ideology and intensity. But there's one difference here, and the GQ cover shows it. It's how the media, entertainment, and tech and the tech companies treat the slivers in the Democrat, the progressives. They don't see them as extremists. They see them as, brave radicals speaking truth to power. Hence that cover. And while you will never see an extreme MAGA candidate on a magazine, because it's not really about politics at all. The reason why she's on that cover and you never see a Republican or conservative, it's a class distinction. Yeah. This isn't about ideology. They think that people who are Republicans or conservatives are a lower class. So that means that when you're a progressive and then you are allowed to get into into the velvet ropes of society. But the funny thing is, it's getting more that society. The GQs of the world are wholly irrelevant now. Yeah. They don't have an audience. The audience has moved on to more interesting things in podcasts and late night talk shows that are number one. So anyway, I think it's an interesting sign of kind of how funny and sad the left has become.
Yes, funny and sad. You guys are sad.